everyone, to Shop Talks, a production of the E-Kitchen and our sponsors, which are Los Angeles Apparel, Stalls, Hirsch, Easy Way, and this show, Impressions. ekitchen.com. Check out free information and check out our YouTube channel where this video in the end will appear. We're going to talk today about equipment maintenance, something no one ever wants to talk about, but everybody should talk about, something that can't be done on your phone, so no one likes it. I have with me Ryan, who's the regional sales manager about many years, a tech for M&R, and Oliver Neff, who is a tech for SPSI, working on MHMs and Tosoma dryers, etc. So, I think I should have billed this as like just horror stories, but how about even just one story of something that easily could have been prevented, and you saw that by not maintaining it, somebody caused a lot of damage. Can you think of something for that?
Sure. I'm okay audio-wise, not too crazy loud. Everybody can hear me well? All right. Let's see. You get in this industry long enough, you get to see a lot of goofy stuff. T-shirt printers get extremely busy and will put off some of the most basic of things that can indeed do sometimes create problems. I think the craziest thing, I would say, only because I was there present when it happened. I've heard of these stories in the past, but was never there. This actually came true for me one time. So this particular customer, garment decorator, was very laxed at the cleaning of his T-shirt lint and spray adhesive, right? So his machine is, completely covered, looks like a fur ball, right? All of his electrical conduit, his electrical wires, all the way up to the J-boxes and the rafters in the ceiling. Well, there was an electrical short, and it started very, very high in the building at a J-box, and that electrical short created a good-sized spark, enough to create a cotton flash. And I watched as, if anybody's lit did a cotton flash on their socks as a kid, see that poof that you get? Started from the top of his ceiling and traveled as fast as milliseconds down the conduit onto the machine. Whole machine turns into a cotton flash. Underneath the machine, cotton flash. All of his air tubing, electrical wiring, cables, all of those things were melted instantaneously. And it wasn't a fire that just kept going. It was just an ignition, and then it was gone. And then it was just sitting there smoking. So those are some of the things that they're not even included as far as press maintenance. That's just the cleanliness side of a dirty industry, which is textile can be a very dirty industry.
So not just are you a slob, but you're a menace. We actually had the same thing. We were in a very tall warehouse, and we had the top of the girders had collected cotton dust, and we had warehouse heaters. They used to have the gas heaters, and they caught the cotton on fire. Luckily, we put it right out with a fire extinguisher. Yeah. But after that, cleanliness is definitely necessary. So, Albert, you've only been doing it a few years, but have you seen any horror shows of people should have taken care of their press?
Well, I can't top that, probably. I haven't had the pleasure of seeing that. It's amazing you were there to witness it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But, for me, probably the most common one that I've seen that's the most sort of shocking to me is when people manipulate the safeties on the machines. I don't want to name any particular places, and I get it because it's a disruptive issue to have in production, and it seems if you're complicated to resolve, and much simpler to just shove a paper clip in there or cut something you shouldn't cut. Those are probably the most concerning.
Sure. It starts with a failure of a safety device.
Yes.
And then the investigation and how do I get around it? How
do you bypass it rather than contacting a technician to resolve it? And that seems like fairly simple and an easy to navigate, solution. But I get when you're, maybe you're printing on a weekend or something. But yeah, I've actually had one where they were entirely with the sawzall cut off, which was exciting.
Oh God. Yeah, that's a scary
All
situation.
right, now we scared people. That's not just base. There's just some basic stuff that when I go in shops, I don't see them do. I'm sure you do as well. What are some of the just absolute basics? The cleanliness being one. What are some other things that people should that no matter what the machine, regularly you should be checking or doing?
Wow. Yeah. Preventative maintenance on an analog screen printing press is not that expensive to do, and just some of the basics itself will leave you at a place where some free. I guess if I had to name, like if you were to put it on a top 10 list, I think for me personally, because I've seen a lot of it, and I'm sure you have as well, is clean, dry air. Every machine, almost every machine, is using compressed air for at least squeegee pressure, right? And so there's valves and there's cylinders that are in place, and every compressed air system needs to be well lubricated. It's not a hydraulic system, right? So, and the byproduct of compressed air is water. And I think if the compressor's running, most shops are so, involved with their work that they don't know if their dryer, their chiller's working, So if it was for me, that's going to go a much longer way than almost any PM that you could do. So I've told customers literally this: if you're going to do nothing to my machine at all, at least give it clean, dry air.
No, I agree. That's one I see a lot, and it's difficult because people are spending. You're there to work on one thing, and you don't want to blame something else in their facility. Oh no, I can't fix this because your air's bad. But it's such an essential component to basically every screen printing shop I've been in. They run heat presses, and some dryers use the air for tracking or things like that. And so if you're just starting from the ground level with something that's just going to cause you issues, if you resolve that, everything else will be simpler. I think for me, if I don't know if it's really maintenance, but it's sort of related, is I don't think people need to be technicians to work on these machines, but I think having some level of literacy in what the parts are even called is a really basic and pretty approachable thing to do. You don't need to be a genius, but
You can't send them a thingamajig?
a lot of stuff it really
The
helps.
pointy thing, the thing with the wires,
Yeah.
you can't send them that?
ARM is one of the most overused terms on every printing machine. It's very confusing, and I understand that on the customer side as well, but that's what the technicians are here for. And even just arriving at the same name to call all the parts is
The thing with the numbers, that thing.
yeah, it's incredibly helpful, and it doesn't take much time, and there are many people who are happy to help you and resources to do that.
Yeah, I think we've been successful. Air compressor guy is my maintenance guy. That's his field of work. So I think we know how important that is. Like lubrication is not done enough. I mean, some machines, I'm not that familiar with M&Rs, but you have to climb up there to grease them, and seems like that's not that hard, but people don't do it.
Oh, yeah. I can definitely speak to that. I've seen it. I screen printed for a decade, 11 years actually, before I moved into the technical field. And, these guys are tired at the end of the day. Like you said, you don't have to be a technician to do the preventative maintenance on these machines. They're outlined well. If you can hit a grease zerk with a grease gun, keep some things cleaned and oiled, and then nowadays where you've got the machines that are literally telling you the prescribed maintenance, like when they're coming up, we've got to get these shirts out. We don't have time to stop the press. I completely understand that. But your uptime is everything. But if we're not discussing downtime to keep the machine in proper health, that should be bid into those production schedules, right? I've got this bearing that needs to be greased, this oiler that needs to be filled with oil, and check that it's dripping at the proper rate. I've got, the tension of this belt that needs to be looked at potentially for a loose tension and create problems with print stroke, things of that nature. So, and they're not hard, right? I think most equipment manufacturers have engineering departments that have got the construction of these machines down to a place to where you really don't have to be super, like, sophisticated in your technical experience to be able to perform some of these very simple things.
So greasing and lubrication, whether it's like lithium grease or silicones or whatever, usually it's not that hard to figure out. The manufacturer tells you what to use. You hit on one other one that I think people forget, and by the time, if they're way too long, it can be a very inopportune moment, is when a belt goes. So how do you know when it's time to replace a belt if a machine that you have has a belt?
So I can speak to a few models of different machines. I think everybody uses them, but most of them are using a poly chain, I think, and they're mechanically set, right? That tension is usually a place where the tension of the print carriage, right? So that you know that if you're getting your squeegee, that it skips a half inch before you get a full thing out of it. You can usually see, or sometimes the motion stops altogether, right? So it slips on its pulley, its sprocket, rather than ride with it. I think a lot of machines are set up in the same manner.
I will say too, like almost back to cleaning, you learn a lot about the wear on your machine when you clean it. You're taking attention to wipe surfaces. You can take that opportunity to observe wear on bearings. If you have metal shavings, ball bearings, you don't know where they're coming from. It gives you that time, which really doesn't cost much more as you're already there to clean it. You can observe the sides of the belts on a dryer for wear. So kind of circling back to grease, something that, at least on the equipment I work on, most places don't have a grease gun, let alone two. So
what does that cost? Doesn't it cost thousands of dollars?
Yeah, they're very expensive.
No, how much? It'd be good.
$20.
Yeah.
I send one.
Yeah, no, it absolutely. I usually buy one for a customer when I'm on site and just leave it there. And why I say two though is because often with dryers, maybe not every manufacturer, you have high temp grease that might be needed in certain places to withstand the temperatures those bearings are under. You can, at least for the equipment I work on, that might not be suitable for places that are not being heated up. It's too thick, so you need to be sure that not all grease is the same. And there's a lot of misunderstanding there, again, that can be resolved pretty simply.
We had a dryer with a belt that ran a fan, so how would you know that the belt needs replacing?
That's very good. That's a good question. I get this call a lot, right? So there's a lot of gas-fired dryers out there. In order for a company to be certified in selling and building a gas-fired appliance, is what they would call it, right? There has to be a lot of certification there. So air switches, right? Because we're talking about burning natural gas, CO2, those things, air switches. So air switches are always in place to check motion, right? If you break a belt on a fan that's creating air motion, the dryer should go into an alarm. That usually leads you to a mechanical part first, right? Oh, I get an air switch failure alarm here. I wonder if that air switch is bad. Well, maybe the fan's not turning, correct? Right? Maybe it's that. So I got a broken. Oh, you take the cover off. Sure enough, you got a belt laying there, right? So most manufacturers, will go back to that, is that they're starting to really capitalize on technology that we never had in my earlier days, at least, where the machine is telling you when and how and to do something or to check something, right? So the sophistication level of somebody being able to do those PMs isn't quite as intense as it has to be, right? Or they think it has to be, right? So.
Anything else about maintenance that you were thinking about before you came up here?
Oliver, I bet you're for sure thinking about this one. If you haven't, it's on top of my mind. Most machines aren't completely 100% pneumatic anymore, right? People are using the AC drives and servo motors. Batteries, man. A PLC has been in a machine forever, right? Since the programmable logical control. They all have batteries which hold their parameters in their programs. And that will leave you down, right? You come in, you start a job on Monday, everything goes fine, it's still on press when you come in Tuesday, you turn the press on, and nothing's responding. You call a service technician, he'd ask you to do a couple checks, looks at some inputs, outputs. Oh, you lost your program. What do you mean I lost my program? When's the last time you changed the battery in your PLC, sir? There's a battery in my PLC? right? So it leaves you down. Now you're down for 24 hours to rush in a part, reprogram a PLC, get you back up and running. So battery replacement in your preventative maintenance schedule, extremely important, I think.
It's difficult to get to that point in training on the machine, on a new machine, to even, and then they usually last for so long that most people don't commit that to memory. So it is a hard one to find for sure, and it leaves you pretty much down until you resolve that.
You have any questions about maintenance of your machines? That's fine. We could have even already covered it. It's fine. Do you have a... All right, so you want to repeat the question and answer it?
Sure. It sounds to me like what you're saying is on your piece of equipment, there's a grease zerk that needs to be greased periodically as part of the preventative maintenance, right? There's probably more than one. There's probably several. There's probably one at the print carriage location. There's probably one at the center shaft location. And there's probably one on the index assembly mechanisms. And a grease zerk is just a fitting that is designed for a grease gun to be applied to so that the grease can be pushed into that mechanical part. That's a manufacturer question. So your manufacturer will give you the spec grease for your machine. He was mentioned earlier, there's a lot of different greases, high temperature greases, standard silicone-based greases, a lot of those things that will be very particular for your machine.
We're not talking about a lot of expense though. So if you need two kinds, as they mentioned earlier, you could get two guns. They might cost $20. That's it. And then, and that $20 could save you thousands of dollars. And then a tube of grease, I think, is less than $10 probably. Very inexpensive. So of all the things that you could spend money on, greasing your machine is probably one of the very few that will make it last longer and run better. So I would pay attention to that.
And Rick, I would add, part of your preventative maintenance when you're applying grease, I think a lot of people forget this. It goes back to our cleanliness discussion, is let's wipe the old grease off at the location that we're greasing, because that's already old, it's full of debris, it's dirt, it's got t-shirt fuzz in it, it's got all those things. Let's wipe that old grease off of that component before we're applying the new grease, right?
Standard maintenance. That's a good question.
Good question. Very good question.
I think so. It's standard maintenance for a dryer. I'm not sure what kind of dryer you run, and
That's all right, Dylan.
yeah, I mean, I'll just speak sort of in general terms. I think the stuff that I see the most, again, it's probably you should have just called this, press and dryer cleaning advice, because the biggest one I see is cleaning, because you have all these different places where the air needs to circulate, and those all get filled with debris and lint or from whatever you're running, and that's usually the biggest one. I have a lot of sensor issues and things where just the components are just covered in lint and they're not functioning properly. So that would be the biggest one. Get a shop vac with an extension, and there may be panels you can remove to access those places when the machine's cold, obviously. Aside from that, assessing belt tension, and again, I kind of roll it in with cleaning, because as you're cleaning, you're observing all those components. You're right up against all these components inside of the machine, and you can see wear marks. You can see if there's metal shavings or ball bearings or things where there shouldn't be. Aside from that, I think it's just assessing the belt tension to make sure that it's tracking correctly, or maybe one of the sides is wearing against the inside. Again, in the time you're taking to clean, you're usually able to witness or kind of look at the condition inside of your dryer that you obviously don't have time for a normal operation. But it's pretty much by and large cleaning. People will so for the dryers I work on, we have a set of filters that I think the manufacturer recommends a bi-weekly cleaning per shift. But the thing is, for most people, at least for me, I have a terrible memory. I'm not going to remember which week I did it or not. I've told most shops, as you're firing up the dryer or right before you're going to do it, just clean it every day. Because then if you miss a day, it's already clean, well within the tolerances set by the manufacturer. And again, just for me, it's an interval that's super easy to remember. Again, if you're really hard pressed for time, or you have a certain schedule where maybe a maintenance person is only on site at certain times, you may need to adjust that. But that's definitely more of like the routine, that's more of a daily chore. Then aside from that, greasing bearings, again, depending on use case, I'm thinking you're looking at them 3 to 6 months. It really takes no time comparatively to what you'll spend in time and money if you don't.
Yeah, those are great questions. The when, where, and whys of those things. But too much preventative maintenance is not a bad thing, but no preventative maintenance is horrible, right? Dryers are like a clothes dryer at home. You'll get a complaint, or you'll ask yourself, why is it taking twice as long for me to dry my blue jeans in this dryer? So you call your appliance technician out to find out if there's a problem with your dryer, and he just pulls it out, disconnects the exhaust from it, and he runs a tool up there, and you see mountains of garment lint coming out of your stack. He cleans that well, he puts the dryer back in place, you throw your jeans in, and they dry in half the time. Right, so most dryers are based on airflow. So I think in our industry, our textile industry, it's a very dirty industry. It's spray adhesive and lint. I mean, it's like the worst. So cleanliness is going to be the real trick.
Most of the dryers I've seen have some kind of filter that needs to be cleaned.
Absolutely.
On almost a daily basis, for sure. That may be at the ends of your dryer. That may be where the air goes in. There may be various points, and you really want to keep those clean. If they're ones that change out, usually they're not expensive, and you just got to do it. And then one not mentioned, although he kind of hit on it, is the vent itself. I think at least yearly you want to look at your vent and make sure that it's not full of lint, or especially because we have the spray adhesive often and lint, it wants to stick to everything. And also plastisol and other inks have some kind of residue sometimes as well, and that's sticky, so that and the lint together can really cause a problem sometimes, depending on how good your airflow is. If it's not very good airflow, it's going to clog up even faster, and then you're going to get even worse airflow. So you want to almost like chimney sweep it, if you will, I guess. You could even hire a chimney sweep probably,
100%.
and you want to check that out. Sometimes it's easy. We can walk on a roof and look down the pipe. Other people, it's difficult, but you do have to do it, or you can risk a fire even.
Yeah.
So that was a good question. Do you have other questions? Bring it on. All right. So, Ryan, you were over at which booth?
Yeah, I'm over at Graphic Solutions Group booth. I think that's 517.
Yeah, and then Oliver's at SPSI over there. If you want to talk more to him, please do. And thanks everybody for watching. And thanks to Impressions, and thanks to Ryan and Oliver here. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.